And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
There are railroad games out the wazoo. There's a dedicated group of gamers, the Puffing Billy organization, and all they do is play train games. Whether it's Ticket to Ride, or Age of Steam, or 1856, or Transamerica, or, whatever. Most of the games are usually related to laying down track and stock markets, and train games can be quite complex, although they're not always. But then here's one, String Railway. Your tracks are strings. Now, I brought this out, and people said, alright, this looks silly. We played Cat's Cradle here with this. People weren't really expected, but this is a surprise of the year, folks. This is a game that just feels organic. When you play it, you look at it, and it just makes sense. It's fast, it's neat, and it feels like no other game that I played. Can I say this is one of the best train games I've ever played? I can. Let's take a look at it. You can really set the board up any way you want. It's this big, long string board. If you're playing a 4-player game, you really want to try to have corners in the board. And in each of those corners, you're going to put each person's starting base. And that's going to give them points as they play the game. Now, you're going to take the rest of the bases, of the ones that aren't played, and up to 5 players can play. So we put bases in each of the corner. You take the rest of the cards, and you make a shuffle pile out of them. And then each player gets several strings. You get 4 small strings and 1 large string. And you can see that the large string is basically twice the length, a little bit less than twice the length of one of the small strings. So these are your tracks. You're going to be putting one down each turn, so the game is effectively 5 turns. Also, in the middle of the board, one of the players places a mountain range. That's what that stands for. And another player places a river, which can even go out of the board like this one is doing. So on my turn, I draw a station. Now if I draw a countryside station, I can draw again. Oh, that's a base. Can't draw that. So is that one. Another countryside station. Here I would stop drawing. So now I place my track down, and let's say I started here on my base and made it go through this countryside station to another countryside station. Now, each station will show either a white or a black star, or like in this instance, a combination of them both. What that means is the white station is the player who owns it. So for example, here at a transfer, the player who owns the station, and you use little plastic chips to keep track of this, would get 0 points for connecting. Other players get 2 points for connecting. As countryside, any player who connects to it gets 1 point for connecting. However, only a certain number of players can connect to each track. For example, here, only 1 player can connect to this station, while this station, everyone can connect to it. Different stations have different abilities too. You say, why would I build this station if it gives me 0 for owning it? Because anytime someone else connects to it, you get a point. And so you put these down and you're trying to connect the different stations. Anytime you cross any other string on the board, you lose a point, whether it's mountain or the river. And then there's some stations, like this one here, that are worth more if they're inside the mountain range, which might give you an incentive. And you'll see as players are placing their string that they're trying to make them go around the lines as much as possible. And as you continue to put your trains out, each one has to connect to a station that you're already part of. So you have this network. And many times, other stations players control, especially their home base, if someone else connects to it, you lose a point. Points are kept track with on a point sheet that's kept to the side of the board. But that's basically the extent of the game. Like I said, there's different sorts of stations. Here's a town, which gives 3 to the character who builds to it, 1 to everybody else, and then you lose a point, like your home base. A central just gives everybody 3 points. And how you place these out there, and how you place your strings, especially how you place your long, lengthy string, that's really going to determine how many points you score over the course of the game. And as you play it, the whole thing looks like a train network. The size of the box, you get a lot in here. I like the different color strings. I like the idea that the track can go anywhere. Most train games I play, you're stuck with the curves and you're stuck with the tiles. Oh, I can't build this because there is no way you can make that curve. In this game, you can make that curves. Now, if you play with miniature gamers, you can imagine how they'll sit there and say, I think it's just barely touching that station. You're going to have to kind of house rule that as it goes. Exactly how close does a string have to be to a station? Can it be touching it by, does it have to be fully touching it? We play pretty easy going, and it's a lot of fun. Because the way you set your train up, you can mess another player up, force him to go over your track, which makes him lose a point. There's just some really neat ways, but it's not complicated. A fun game, String Railway.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.